welcome to the podcast. We're back after a week off. Today, I'm really excited to have on Joanne Bryant, who has been a client of Kate's in the Bodybiz a couple of times, correct?
Yeah, three times.
3 times.
Time's a charm.
Yeah, and this last run you guys have had has been really successful to the point where, like, we need to have her on here and really just talk about how you've had all the success with your last run, just, getting yourself in really good shape, because overwhelmingly the type of result that you've got from working with Kate and training here are what overwhelmingly almost all of our clients are looking for. I think a lot of times we're kind of known for we have really good competitors and things like that, and it's fun to highlight that, and it's a really fun, cool aspect that gets a lot of attention through like Instagram and stuff like that. But overwhelmingly, almost everyone who comes here is looking to just look and feel their best and be, get their mojo back, be the best version of themselves, and use CrossFit and the types of things we do for a workout and probably less of a sport. And I feel like that's really what you've done. I know you guys have worked together closely, and if you want to kick it off, like, what is your training background, like maybe before you reached out to Kate, like growing up, did you play any sports, things like that?
Okay, yeah, sure. So growing up, I did play some sports. I wasn't elite by any stretch. Swimming was something I did in junior high and early high school. And then I dabbled in soccer and cross country. Like I said, I wasn't very good, but I enjoyed it. I think the team sport stuff is valuable on lots of levels. I think as it relates to my kids in particular, I'm pushing it, but not, like, I'm not raising athletes.
Yep.
So for me, it was just more fun than anything else. And then in college, I did some running, but, like, not a lot of regular gym activity.
I can't imagine you ran, like, by
I was
choice.
a jogger.
She hates running now. She gets pissed at me.
Yeah, running is not my favorite. It actually never was my favorite. It was just a means to an end.
Yeah. Well, you can do it anywhere. It's a nice
Yeah,
thing
throw
to,
your shoes on and be like, hey, I got to get back in shape here, and
Right.
we're going to go run.
Right. So then post-college, I found myself back in the gym. I would work with trainers here and there. Not a lot of strength training unless I was working with the trainer. Like I said, I would lean into running mostly as my form of physical activity. And then had a career. I did work out, and I did some triathlons and 5Ks, stuff like that. But once I got married, I had some kids, I really fell off the fitness wagon for probably maybe 5 years. And some of that was my first baby was just highly, she had a lot of medical needs. So my focus at that time really wasn't on my personal fitness journey. And as a result, my weight kind of spiked at that time in my life. So after I had my second baby, that's when I really wanted to recommit to the process, to myself and to fitness. And I really wasn't focused on nutrition at all. I did nothing in the nutrition space. For probably 6 years, I worked out 5 days a week. Hired a trainer, worked out with her at least probably 3 of those 5 days. And then the other 2 days, I would just find something to do. Maybe it was like a dance fitness class or running or elliptical, whatever. So at that point is when I found Kate, maybe 6 years into that. I was like, well, I gave it a go.
Was that
Working out was not
2020
changing my body.
that you came to see me?
Or is it 2019?
2019?
Right before
okay.
COVID.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, training and working out works, and I think mentally you're like, you're assuming a certain result's going to come from it. And I was one of those people who thought, like, I naturally just store fat in a certain way. I can't really, get real toned or cut up. And then I remember the light bulb hit me when I got into CrossFit, started learning about nutrition, and then I would get 2 frozen pizzas every grocery trip that I made. And I remember that simple choice of like not doing that every week. And then my body transformed and I'm like, oh, the food goes with the, the workout. And it seems like, it would go without saying, but it really does. It's like a big thing,
Well, my trainer would always say, you cannot out-train your diet.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just going to try.
You want to bet? All right, tried it for 6 years. I can't do this anymore.
But in hindsight, it was a
out.
great, I think I was still building a lot of muscle. I was building a routine. And mentally is where I benefited probably the most with that routine, and also like just doing something for yourself once a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
You feel much better when you're training.
And you
Absolutely.
had a lot of success then in 2019, right?
Yeah.
You lost like 30, 35 pounds.
I mean,
is
in
that right?
fact, I think from a life move, that was probably more beneficial than even this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I came in with a very nice muffin top, and it was like 3 months, and it was gone with you.
Yeah. Yeah. But you really have surpassed even, like I remember in the second time we worked together, and you've made progress each time, but I really feel like this time you've attacked a lot of your weaknesses, like with fitness and just really changing a lot of your like dietary habits. Like you kind of would go back to old habits, I think, in between each time. And that's part of why I'm not doing the macro counting anymore. I just feel like it's unsustainable, and that's what I'm looking for. I would really have a hard time, producing great results with people, but then hearing if it didn't stick, because I'm like, well, what is this for then? Yeah. It's a lot of time, energy, money.
I think there is a lot of value in macro tracking as a learning curve.
Yeah.
Because I personally never understood the protein and what does it mean to eat 135 grams of protein. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And what is 30 grams of protein on a plate?
Yeah.
I could not have answered that question without macro tracking.
Yeah. I just don't know that anyone really needs to know that. That's just my
it's like to her point though, and I think you really built your business for a long time on that, and that was kind of like the bedrock of like educating a lot of your clients. And what you have now is a lot of like returning clients, and they understand food in a way they didn't before. And you had kind of done a hybrid of what you do now at one point, where you did a month of macros and then into like more of an intuitive eating.
But now I just do it all like but I still provide a lot of education. So I think that's really important. But it's so hard and you struggled with it too. I mean, I think the second time we worked together was like half arguing about macro tracking, and then you would sneak back on, and it's a tough transition. But really, if you can kind of educate just, hey, here's a template of a day plugged into your schedule that this meal will fuel you best for this activity. This meal will help replenish best from this activity, or types of meal. So like ranges of protein, ranges of carbs, ranges of fat, and really just trying to tap into how you feel. And you're noticing that now, where you're like, your kind of status quo isn't cutting it anymore because you're getting lean enough where you need to add an extra meal in. And that's a goal, to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, and that's when you can be intuitive, then you can feel your body rather than be kind of stuck in jail where you're like, okay, I'm trying to follow these guidelines, and you're like,
it doesn't fit.
I'm really hungry, and not in a way that I'm like, I just need it for comfort or I'm bored. Like, you can tell, like, hey, I just hit a hard workout, my metabolism's rolling here. Like, I need a meal to like recover so I can train the next day. It takes a lot of like getting in tune with your body. I think, sometimes people will, I'm listening to my body, and it's like they're not there yet. It takes a lot of time. I know personally. I don't know. Maybe it's with guys. Dave, have you ever done the macros before? Like punched it in and for an extended period of time?
Define extended. Like a day? No, I'm just I remember using my Fitness Pal. I mean, this is probably years ago.
Yeah.
Back when I was competing.
Yep.
I just, in some areas of my life, just generally, I don't like things that structured. I just like...
Yeah, that's what...
especially with something that I never really had too much of a problem with,
Yep.
Fortunately, I just did everything pretty moderately. I just kind of learned to make smart decisions over time.
Yep.
But just as far as measuring and counting stuff, I just never had such a specific goal I wanted to do, like a bodybuilding show or something that was I was trying to achieve a certain aesthetic result that I feel like I needed to dial that in. I mean, I think I probably did it for maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's what
something
I've
like
done.
that.
Yeah.
And it's a good
Drove Brandon crazy.
Oh
yeah.
He's like, if I have this protein bar instead of this one, it changes everything.
Yeah, some people like that structure, and they can really, like you're saying, use that as a good learning tool to figure out how food works and what actually, what 30 grams of protein looks like in a chicken. Then eventually you can just do it by eye. But it is interesting. It just wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't going to be for me as far as just a long-term thing. As that, especially as not having a specific goal in mind for body composition, things like that. I kind of had a good understanding of, what foods are good or bad and not overeating, So I've done it before, but it's not my thing.
No, fun.
And I even think with your intuitive approach, it's not exactly fully intuitive. It's a little bit planned,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, but part of that is you're going to go real long between meals if you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
So you always kind of need to plan and have an
out.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think the intuitive part, what I believe works the best is you have a range. Hey, I know I'm going to have this sort of thing for lunch, but if I have 4 ounces of chicken versus 6 ounces of chicken, that depends on how hungry I am. And to have that sort of range and kind of always keep the range. The problem I have found when people start tracking, and it's with me too, and then go into intuitive eating, they will always kind of in their mind go with the least amount and be stuck in their head calculating calories. And I try not to do it. It still is in there, and I think it only harms me because if I'm trying to reach a goal, I will tend to just try to undereat and then wait to a point where I kind of break down. And that's what always happens with the macro tracking.
You tracked everything you ate in MyFitnessPal for nearly a decade straight.
Yeah, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 10 years where
not all the time. I wouldn't do it on the weekends and stuff,
sure.
But
it was pretty consistent though.
It was a real
you did it for a solid 10 years, I feel like.
I remember Lauren talking to me back in the day because she was kind of the pioneer out of our group to do intuitive eating, and she was much better. And I just have such a fear. It was so ingrained in me that if I don't track, I just gain weight. But I would always prove that to myself because I'd eat like an asshole. Hey, I'm not tracking. And of course, you go just crazy. I'd eat twice as much as Brandon. Then, weird, I gained 8 pounds. I don't need that. But that fear had really held me back. And I feel like, it held me back from reaching my fitness goals, and it really held me back just with being happy in life and feeling like I would always have to put myself in jail. So, but no, you've really done a great job. How have your workouts changed, since 2019, would you say?
Okay, so in 2019, I resisted working out in your group. I do recall. So I had a pretty good routine, and you were very accommodating with that. I was working out with my trainer at the time, and then 3 days a week with her and 2 days of whatever else. And then COVID came. So I remember I was using your True Coach app.
Yep.
And I was doing at-home workouts, which at the time I was like, oh, this is going to be horrible. But I actually kind of liked it. I could listen to whatever music and,
you remember
get
that,
it when I could.
3, 2, 1, 1.
Yes.
3, 2. Everything tempo.
Yeah.
And it worked really well, though.
Yeah.
I feel like I got good results with that. Sucked, but
Yeah.
not my favorite in the garage.
But I was pretty consistent with COVID, working out still 5 days a week. And then once gyms opened back up, I joined CrossFit Bexley and was pretty much 5 days a week there. And I think I stuck with that until I had a surgery. And then I transitioned to more strength training for probably like a year and a half of me just going to the gym, putting my AirPods on, I followed like a routine. And I still, that's like my favorite way to train, to be honest. Because I can pace myself. I do push myself, but it's like I certainly don't push myself on pace, which Kate is really good at tricking me into working harder on that. And then here recently with you, I've been in the 10:30 group since December.
Yeah, we just transitioned into power hours now.
Yeah.
Which I think will be good.
Getting a little out of the comfort zone. I think when you work out with people and have a little accountability, it helps.
For sure.
I try and force myself to, I have a flexible schedule and I wouldn't have to train in classes. Almost all of my training, if it lines up, is always in like the CrossFit class or the Power Hour class, which is what we just started doing right now. And I actually track that. So a lot of my goals now, and I think this helps too, is more process-based than like I'm trying to get a certain result. I'm like, okay, how many classes did I get in this month? Like, if I can consistently get in like 16 classes a month, which is 4, and then I'll usually work out, we'll go for a run or, we take a yoga class too. So I'll get in 6 workouts a week, but if 4 of those are in like the CrossFit group or the Power Hour group, I just notice my results just go.
Yeah.
And then if it starts falling, into like 2 or 3 days a week, it's not a good thing for me. So I don't know.
What I think is neat is to hear about like how people struggle. I think anyone that's gotten into really good shape, there's usually a point, because it's hard, right? And you have to have a lot of changes and allow yourself to be uncomfortable. There's usually a point where you think about quitting. And I remember we had that even this last time where we sat down in a meeting and you're like, I don't know about this. I'm like, yeah, I think you're at that point. You either start trying harder or you quit. And so you're like, okay, what's that look like? And you really rose to the occasion. Like it was really neat. And you were in pretty good shape this last time when you came to me. I mean, you were 147, and not that weight's everything, but it's interesting because you just told me today you hit a new low, 128. Right. So, and that's 20 pounds. You probably didn't think you had to lose.
Well, it's funny. It's always more weight than you think. Like I was like, 10 pounds, good. And you get to that weight.
Sometimes it's maybe just telling yourself that. So you're like, oh, it won't be that hard.
100%.
Then you're like, oh, well, okay, we'll see. Yeah. It is, and it's hard to tell until you get down to it. But I've worked with women before that have a lot of muscle, that were athletes and just lifting for years, and they would think they needed to lose 15 pounds, and 7 on them looked extremely significant. So it's not always the case, but it's really hard to tell. But what made you decide to go for it?
Okay, I remember a conversation where you pushed me to simplify my meal planning, and I was like, that's probably a good idea. And you're like, just rice, potatoes, meat, vegetables.
Simple, yeah.
And I was like, okay, that does simplify it, makes it much more manageable. So I've been eating very basic meals and a lot of the same stuff. I'll like make a bunch and freeze it, and it's easy. Yeah. So once it became easier to manage and I didn't think about it as much, like it was easier to implement.
Yeah. And do you think maybe just you not thinking about it as much helped you not like overeat? Sometimes if it's just always on your mind, or I have to do this, it becomes like, all I'm thinking about is food. And especially, if you're cooking for your family, I know like when the kids are home for the summer, sometimes I feel like all I do is cook, clean up, where like when we're on vacation, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'll tell my in-laws, I'm like, I'm going out to eat. Someone's going to wait on me. They're going to be nice to me. They're going to clean up after me.
Yeah.
I know it's ridiculous and it's more money, but you get tired of it.
Yeah, for sure. The less work I can do to prep my own meal in the moment, the more success I'm going to have. I find if I don't meal prep, then I'm eating a lot of sandwich thins and turkey. And that's just like, I'll eat it, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I like to enjoy my food too. So,
yeah.
And my kids are not eating what I'm eating, let's be real. So my energy in that moment is get them food, microwave my meal that I did 2 days ago.
Does your husband eat with you, or is it just
dinner?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys eat dinner together, but then like lunches are okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
You got to enjoy your food. I think that is a good, like just what you're talking about right now.
So basic, but it's so true. I mean, for so many years, I'd be like, I don't care. You're going to eat tuna. You're going to eat this. And I'm like, wonder why I would always want to binge. Well, you just hate what you're doing. Same thing with workouts or, anything. You've got to enjoy it. You need some of your medicine. You need to go run sometimes. And then as you get better, you start enjoying a little bit. And your taste can change too, where I think you're learning to like things simpler. And then maybe you like spiced up just literally with different spices instead of like sauces, or you just learn different ways to kind of change your palate. But it's so important. And I think it's just like our culture. That's what was really neat about like traveling to Europe, to see how they really celebrate every meal. And it's such our culture to have it be fast. And it's almost like, I feel like the American culture in some ways, it's like about punishing yourself. Like, you shouldn't like your food, or you should feel weird to want to eat. And in Europe, there's like, no, enjoy everything. Like, you don't need to feel strange about enjoying, or like you're doing something wrong, or it should be shameful, I think that's wrapped up in our culture, to be afraid of being hungry, be afraid of our hunger, afraid of enjoying our food, and that like we always need to punish ourselves or earn it through some sort of exercise. And it's just like this real fucked up way of thinking that I think only hurts us.
This country doesn't look like it's afraid to eat.
That's what I was just going to say. That's where I was going to go with that. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I've thought that so many times talking to my clients.
Everywhere you go, there's a different fast food place. I think Columbus is even more so than normal, where,
I think there's just so much like shit food in this. I mean, there are like from fast food to marketing, advertising, the chemicals we put in this food that aren't even used, they're banned in European countries. Mm-hmm. Like there's so much shit from pesticides to like all sorts of stuff, and we just gobble it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That
you really like, there's a certain amount of like us that are very kind of, it's very difficult to stay this disciplined in this country without being overweight. Like I really feel for people who have a problem with it, because like, look what's out there. You are just being inundated every day with, marketing for food, and it's just in your face all the time, and it's generally kind of cheaper, and it's just hard to escape it. They're not getting, the food pyramid is probably still being used, and that was like basically created by cigarette companies, bought out food companies in the 80s. Like it's a disaster, and it's all like, we can see the writing on the wall, but it's an uphill battle just to stay healthy nutritionally in this country.
Oh, you're right.
So
I mean, even like going through the grocery store with the kids, I'm like, okay, we're going to pick out yogurts. We literally had to get through like probably 10 different brands of yogurt before I'm like, this one is acceptable. Because I'm like, that's crap and that's crap. I'm like, sugar. I know it's here, sugar, but it's like this squeezable Googurt. And I'm like, guys, no, this is all, that's like a treat. Like this is not acceptable. Food, really. Like to just, what's healthy or what's not, Also, we had this loaf of bread. This is reminding me that Brandon used the other morning. I waited till he finished his sandwich. I was like, that bread is 4.5 weeks old, and it's still kind of good.
Oh, it was still fine.
I mean, that's a perfect example. Like Chelsea makes sourdough. After 5 days, that thing will start to get mold. Like that's what bread should be.
Yes. I've started to buy like sourdough, like from the bakery at least.
Even if Kroger Bakery, Whole Foods, whatever. See if you can get some fresh bread that's made, that day or the day before, and just realize that it's not pumped full of stuff that's going to make it last a lifetime.
I mean, it's interesting because I think you can get like, so I think people will go like, get lost in the weeds of like being so healthy, like can't have anything, like does this food have this or that, or sometimes I just want like a Dairy Queen ice cream and I'm sure it's like not great, but I don't think that's going to kill me. Or if I eat Jif peanut butter, I don't think that's going to kill me. Do I think the real stuff's better? Yeah, but I think you can get too obsessive, and I think about that for the kids, because I've had clients who were children of nutrition coaches that really just started hiding food. And my daughter does it. I went to like, we have fruit snacks, and we have a big box of them from Costco in the basement. They're kind of like a treat. Half that box was filled with empty wrappers because she probably goes and gets like 3 of them every night.
Okay, I would have done that too.
Yeah.
Gushers.
Well, yeah, I think the answer is to not have a ton of that stuff around the house.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
then
what
you're
I've
gonna
been
do it
saying.
when. So I remember Lauren saying like when she went to her friend's house and she would just like binge because they were never allowed to have. You got to watch. You've got to watch.
Sure.
You're like being too strict with anything because there's always like the other side of that, and it's tough because like you know, if we went out to a pool party and there's Doritos, I'm kind of like, I'm like, who cares? They have a couple Doritos. It's not the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
You try not to have that crap around, but if they can't ever have it, they're going to have issues with it.
You don't want to be crazy, but you also, that stuff layers on fast. Like, just the peanut butter, the ice cream, and then like,
Then you're dipping your Doritos in ice cream and covering with peanut butter.
You extrapolate it out though, and you're like, okay, out of the 4 times we ate, like, half the
I'm
food
gonna have to
was
try that.
shit. So you have to, you do have to watch it and kind of like work around that and be mindful, because if you're not mindful, to Dave's point, I think in the U.S. here, you're gonna, the way you're sourcing your food is a lot of times kind of
it's like intuition. I think it's like the kind of adjusting your palate to enjoy like how good like healthy foods taste, like how good berries taste if you kind of stop eating a lot of other shit, and just generally making smart decisions most of the time, whether it's 85% of the time or 90% of the time. Like 10% of the time, have the Doritos, have the Dairy Queen, and like that's good enough and feeling good about it. And if like you do that for a while and maybe it's maybe it needs to be a little better, you can assess that. But just it's making good decisions most of the time and allowing yourself to live and enjoy the
croissant.
Standard American diet most of the time, right? And my croissant this morning, it was awesome. Thank you, Grandview Grind. It was really good. But again, I'm going to enjoy it, when it's there, and then the rest of the day will be good.
Yeah. But I like what you said about like adjusting your palate, because, if someone like you coming to me in 2019, you're not like really going to do a great job of listening to your intuition, because you're so used to patterns or eating a certain way, or even like when we get our kids back from my parents' house, I mean, it's like a readjustment back to, hey, we're not going to have this all day, because it's kind of a free for all, there. And Charlotte will just go raid the cupboards. And as soon as she gets there. But I remember doing that at my grandparents' house.
I would do that at my friend's houses when I was young, like even in high school. You guys have a candy closet? A candy closet? Yeah, I get it.
Gatorade's on deck in someone's like fridge, all the time. You'd have a friend who had like the good house for food. I love that.
And I don't think anyone
it wasn't
to come
my
to
house.
our house. Yeah.
It was not my house.
Yeah, Oscar's had some friends come over and they're like, what do you have for snacks? They're like, I'm not hungry. Like they have a yogurt. Where's your pretzels? Where's your Doritos?
Ants on a log.
Like, screw
celery
this.
with peanut butter and raisins.
So I wanted to ask Joanne, so you've honestly just hit a hell of a stride, and it's been super impressive, and you look fantastic. Maintaining this, like, kind of looking ahead, what is your plan? Like, just moving forward, like, okay, I'm going to keep training. I'm going to keep doing, like, there's things that can knock you off. Like, do you have a plan to just like, okay, how am I going to stay on top of this?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
I think maintenance is where it's so funny because you're in this journey and you don't think a lot about maintenance until you get there and you're like, whoa, okay, now is the hard part. I don't know what my plan is, and that's why I'm still with Kate, I think.
Yeah.
Because there is something magical about accountability. And I am nervous to let go of that because, you slip a little bit. But I think for me what works is having a number that on the scale, that's your slide, right? Like you have a max and you have one that's ideal. And if you hit the max, then you reel it in.
Yep.
For me, it was 140. I think I'm going to dial it back to 130. And then periodic, I might have to come back with Kate again.
Yep.
I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah. Keep touching it.
And what's nice now is you're doing like the daily log, but we don't meet every week, which I think kind of helps. Like that's just so intensive and a lot of like emotions, and where you just kind of keep the log, you share it. I'll get on you mainly about just going too long between meals.
Yeah.
And I think that's like your biggest mistake. But I mean, you go out to eat what, twice a week about average now?
It's been a little less here recently, and some of that is I do have a little bit of stress around eating out right now because every time I do it, the scale goes up by like 3 pounds, and it takes 5 days to go down. And I know it's going to go down, but it gives me stress. So that's something I know I need to work on is balance.
Yeah, I think just to kind of discuss that, I think that range would be healthier to be a little bit wider, like a 3 to 5. Yeah. And maybe this is like what you try to hit once a year, but I don't know that like it's super sustainable. And I don't know that it's real healthy to stay within that tight range. At least for me, personally, I like to go out and have a big old bacon cheeseburger like we did Saturday night was awesome. And if I gained 2.5 pounds, hey, it's not a big deal. And it might not come right back off, but that, to hit your peak and stay like 90% of it for a long time, I think it causes more stress than it does good. And I think that's where I've seen, whether it's athletes or coaches, start to lose hair or start to have some of these autoimmune sort of responses that are really just caused by stress. Mm-hmm. Whether it's gut issues, I've had that in the past. Yeah, yes, that's maybe why you guys lost your hair.
Yeah, 21.
If you would have just allowed yourself
to vary on the scale, 3 to 5 pounds.
I do it.
Yeah, it does.
If you would have just known that then.
I would like to sustain lifestyle lean, and maybe it's not 130, maybe it's 135. And for me, I've made some fitness goals. One of them is glute gains, staying lean. So I don't know how you do both of those at once. I think there's probably a little bit of give on that, but
I think you can. I've seen the best results with my clients and me personally, staying pretty lean. I mean, not like shredded like a show or you're going to have to put on some body fat. But I've done the whole bulk thing where I gained 20 pounds one year. And I was like, man, the next year was more effective for me to stay leaner and gain muscle. I found that to not be real effective because I think a lot of it was just like the quality of food and the care I was putting into myself. But I think personally for you, I really think a lot of it now comes down to the workouts. And we've talked about that, like pushing harder, heavier weights and keeping that consistently like 4 times, like, kind of what Brandon was saying with those lifts, like the power hours and stuff. Yeah. Because you'll like to do that dance class Saturday, which is fine. But I think if you trade power hour for that and keep that consistently, I think you can loosen up more with the food. And I think that would be beneficial for you mentally.
Yeah.
You can dance between sets at power hour.
Yeah. Break it down.
No one will be upset.
What type of dance class is it?
It's a hip hop fitness.
Okay, cool.
I just love it because it goes by. It's like an hour and it feels like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. No, I've always wanted to and we had some guys here who were dancers, and I kind of talked to them about like I always thought it would be really cool to like learn how to do some like breakdancing moves, you know, like literally, okay, like show me how to leverage and do that, and just to be able to break
Oscar
that
used to be
out.
really into that.
Yeah.
He would always think he was breakdancing.
Yeah, he'd like spin around and stuff. And it's just, I mean, and it's a technique, and you know, you have to learn the skills. You have to have some rhythm to it, and it's easier, obviously, for some people than others. But no, I think that's really cool.
I think it's fun to expose yourself to different like
Yeah.
movement practices, even if it's something a couple of times a month. You know, some people do yoga, Pilates. A friend of ours goes to a fitness boxing class in Worthington. He's like, you should stop by, and like I think that'd be fun to do like a few times a month.
Yep.
You know, I don't need to like learn how to fight. I just want to hit something and move around.
It is fun.
Ways. Yeah.
Yep. I do those.
Who teaches your hip hop dance class?
It's Mike Nicholson.
I thought so. Yeah, he's been around a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in
Lifetime
ages,
days.
but I figured that was him. Yeah. I haven't seen him in years, but yeah.
I signed up for pickleball also.
Which is actually pretty fun. I hate to admit it.
We haven't tried that yet. We need to. It still makes me laugh.
You could be really active. I mean, like you'll get a workout. I mean, you need some agility to play. But
I liked tennis as a kid, so I think I like that type of a sport, a racket sport that goes back and forth. So I think I'd be interested.
Definitely
in doing
not as technical as tennis.
Yep.
Like it's I don't know. It's not like badminton, but it's kind of like if you can hit a ball with a racket, like it's definitely easier to pick up than tennis, which is why I think it's become very popular.
For
but
sure.
It's still a big court. You know, like tennis, you got that top spin, the ball's flying everywhere.
Yep.
This, I mean, it's a little different. It's a little smaller court, but it's still big enough. Like you can move around, and once you pick up the rules of the game, it's really not too bad. But,
People like it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most popular, like, recreational sport, like, in the country, you know, now. So I've seen they've made some pro leagues that I've seen. I'm trying to think that some other, like, former pro athletes. I saw it on ESPN, and they're like, you know, like this guy who was like an NFL quarterback was like in the national championships.
Save some sports for the rest of the people. I was like, come on, dude. You had your glory. You were a professional athlete. Now you got to take over this.
That's what was happening. I'm
yeah.
like,
I know, yeah. But it is pretty fun, yeah.
It looks cool. Well, I think that's a great place to kind of like, you know, stick a fork in it. Joanne, you've done a fantastic job. You've been super inspiring, and you know, the results and the work that you guys have done together, I think, is like the model of what we're really looking for, you know, our clients here at the gym, and then like, you know, of course, Kate's clients at the Bodybiz. Like you're the model client, and I think it's great for people to hear from real people, and you know, people who have a busy life. You know, you have kids, and not necessarily, and I geek out on like the, you know, elite athletes and things like that. But again, overwhelmingly, most people are looking for real results that they're going to get. So I think you're an awesome example of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think it should be said that age is, you know, it plays a role, but I don't think it should hold you back. And I did have a moment
How
where
old are you
I
now?
was questioning, can I do this?
Yes.
47.
Yeah. I remember that conversation, and I think it's just kind of in the back of your head, and it's good to prove to yourself, I think, every year that you can get in that good of a shape, and it's, hey, it was just last year I peaked, you know, and it's not too far behind you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that you're trying that much harder than you did back in 2019.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.